Right back to Conversation. Mickelson here with you. My in-studio guest is Judge Roy Moore and Danny Carroll from Family Leader. But you're here on your own here today. They apparently don't know you're over here.
They know what I'm doing, but I'm here as an Iowan today.
Okay. Well, tell us what you have in mind, gentlemen. Why are you here in Iowa doing this today?
You know, I've been in Iowa about 4 times or 5 times in the past year. I initially came to talk to one ministry, and I got involved in this issue with the justices of the Iowa Supreme Court who overturned Iowa's DOMA law, wrongfully, I might add. And I agreed to help out, and I came back and spoke on radio and television. I was later invited to talk at the Capitol on a constitutional reason they should let the Iowans vote on a constitutional amendment for traditional marriage. And I've been here on other occasions to speak to other people. Today I've come back to Iowa at the invitation of some people and my wanting to come back to this radio station where Reagan first started, because I have so much admiration for Ronald Reagan and what he stood for, and to announce that I'm forming an exploratory committee for the office of President of the United States. And I'm doing this for a number of reasons. One, I think that this country is in a moral, economic, and constitutional crisis, and it's the leadership is divided by petty party politics and quite frankly, it's special interest agenda. And we see that our country is going nowhere. The people of this country are tired of politicians who are doing the same thing, whether they're Republican or Democrat, and leadership that is dedicated more to principle or more to power, holding the power of the office, than to principle. A little bit about myself. I'm married, been married for 25 years. I have 4 children, 3 grandchildren, which are delightful to have if you've never had any, because there are less problems.
Yeah, because you can always drive home and leave them there.
I believe in family as the basis of our country, and I see families being destroyed. I see an attack on marriage. I stand for the Defense of Marriage Act passed by Congress in 1996, and I wish our president would too. I believe in the right to life. And I think the opinion in Roe versus Wade was an anomaly. It was against the Constitution, and it can be shown where that right came from. I believe that we need jobs in our country again. I've looked in Iowa, and you know Iowa's such a beautiful state, but even in Iowa, manufacturing jobs many times have been taken away. You go up to the Northeast or the Southeast or the West, and you can see we've lost jobs. Why? Well, we've instituted all these free trade agreements that have done nothing but let industry move to other places, and we've suffered accordingly. So we need to return jobs to our country, and I think that we can do that. I think we've got a bad tax system, and we need major tax reform. I've looked at things like the flat tax, the fair tax. There are a lot of options that we can turn to, and investigate a better tax system if we have to have taxes at all. Part of the problem is we're ignoring the Constitution of the United States. Separation of powers and checks and balances was meant to forbid the accumulation of power in any one branch. We've got the system of the right of the states to govern the health, safety, and welfare of its citizens, and we're neglecting the 10th Amendment. Federal government has grown in such size, scope, and authority that it's trying to take over everything, to include education. And we've got to stop these things.
So did I understand you just declared that you want to be president?
Well, I've just declared I'm going to form an exploratory committee to investigate that proposition, yes.
Is this an announcement you just made here?
It's the first time I've made it, yes.
Okay, that's really kind of cool. And I understand why you're doing it, but
why am I doing it here?
Yeah. Why?
Well, I think this station, I really have a high regard for this station and for the state of Iowa. You know, Iowa has been a model state. Even in this last retention vote on the justices, they've done something that hadn't been done before. They removed justices because they had ruled against the law. And a lot of the judges and justices of this state got upset about it. But you've got to remember, it is the job of a judge or a justice not to make up new law, but to interpret the law that's there.
Did you just see what happened in Wisconsin, though? I mean, did you follow the left, the unions? seeing what Iowans successfully did to those three lawless judges, they tried to do the same thing to a total innocent bystander who had nothing to do with what Governor Walker was doing over there, and tried to not retain a judge just because they wanted to punish the governor.
Yeah.
It didn't work. But now they're going to try to recall some of the politicians over there. Look, they're in a civil war over there in Wisconsin.
They are. Well, I appreciate the governor standing for a principle that, when public employees start banding together and unionized, it does cause problems within the public sector. And certainly they had to reduce their budget, and they had to do what they had to do.
It's interesting that this morning Detroit has learned from Wisconsin, and they have some new laws in Michigan, and now even in union strongholds and an economic basket case like Detroit, Michigan, they're starting to go after the collective bargaining and going after the unions up there because they're just bankrupt.
They're bankrupt. When you're bankrupt, if your family goes bankrupt, if you're spending more than you're taking in, you've got to cut the spending. Can't tax herself.
Well, over the weekend, the response by Greenspan, former head of the Fed, said, "Hey, we're bankrupt. Raise taxes."
Well, no surprise. We've been going. When Reagan took office, the national debt was $1 trillion. Today, it's $14.26 or so trillion. That's a lot of money. People don't understand. If you spent $31.5 million a year, it would take 32 years just to reach $1 billion. You know how long it would take to reach $1 trillion? 32,000 years. And that's a lot of time. We don't have that time.
Well, as you know, Iowa's the first in the nation caucus state. It has been an ever-growing busy pool of potential presidential candidates, and you've just added your name to the list. You think you'd be competitive in this? What is
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that my background of military, I was
what is your background
West Point graduate.
Okay.
In 1969, I went to airborne school, then to Europe. I served in Europe in a mechanized infantry battalion. Then I went to another place in Europe, where a military police company. And then I went to Vietnam, where I was a commander in Vietnam. I mean, I'm so tired of people claiming that they were Vietnam veterans and never even saw the place. I was in Vietnam in 1971 before it was moved. I was in Da Nang as a company commander of the 188th MP Company. I came back to a battalion staff position at Fort Riley, Kansas, and I've been various other posts in the United States. I had an extensive military background. The president is the commander-in-chief of the military. I am shocked at how many people want to be commander-in-chief and have never even seen a military post. You've got to have the experience to understand what the military needs. Our military is being destroyed. We are weakened by so many things. There's a lot of waste, agreed, in all branches of the government, the way the money is spent. But, we've neglected updating our weapons and major things that we need in the military. And now we see a president that's pushing open homosexuality in the military. Well, most military does not stand for that, despite what his own surveys would say, which you can imagine where they come from. Our military is being destroyed, and we've got to retain a strong military.
Well, what I'll do here, when you came in here this morning, I thought the conversation would go one way. You've taken us in a completely different direction. The principal judge, one of the most high-profile cases of standing up for First Amendment and religious liberty in the history of that inclination or that idea here in the United States, Judge Roy Moore, now has decided to aspire to the presidency. And folks, he's just tossed his hat into the ring. If you have questions or comments about anything that he's raised so far, join us right now after our farm markets. We'll reconvene the conversation. This is your opportunity to welcome him to Iowa with your vantage point at 284-1040 or 800-469-4295. Back in a moment.